Hello, hello, televiewers. Hello, media lovers. Hello, my delicious. You are once again welcome to a very special edition of a sit down with. Today, we will be having a sit down with one of Cameroon's pioneers in the media. He is an expert in African development. He is a lot more. We will be meeting him subsequently. But before that, please, you know how we do it. Please share this video, come hard, send us stars, tag your friends, send to groups. And when we come back, we would be taking upon our very special guest. Don't go nowhere. Keep pumping hearts.
ICT country people university. Make we hear, una get the spots.
The 21st century is a century for ICT. You need a tool such as ICT to reach so many places.
Apply now and study ICT, Science of Education, Business Management, and many more at the ICT University.
I can remember having my first company on paper at ICT University during my Entrepreneurship 101 course.
We have lectures online and on-site, permitting us to connect with other students all over the world.
The ICT University recently received the Guardian Post Award for Best University in the sub-region.
Artificial intelligence is all around us. From self-driving cars and drones to virtual assistants and software that can guide you when moving from one city to another in Cameroon.
Apply now. American-style studies right here.
Now country people, the ICT University for Yaoundé, so now the best for Central African sub-region, my country people. Now Professor Emmanuel Pondi that win a big oga for the university, and one salute Professor
Victor Mbarika.
Country people with this wonderful initiative where don't bring them inside Cameroon. When I don't get for go for one man country again for go study business management, study wonderful technology and a lot of other things and way. ICT University again are the best ICT university that for inside Cameroon. So send your picking there. When I want to already get advanced level, Papa na better places. Not in America, now for inside Africa and for Cameroon, it day. So now we partner, we're going to talk about them before school and start for October. Thank you. Kick 'em. We're not there for catch 'em.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining, this is an exclusive sit down with the very formidable Eric Chinje, one of Cameroon's finest in the media, actually an expert in African development initiatives as well. He is a lot. I will be reading his bio. But before I take upon his bio, I would love to see those of you in the comments and also to remind you that we are streaming live simultaneously on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, it's fine. If you're on Facebook, it's fine. Let's see those of you who are connected already. I have, okay, Vital Atuma. Hey, Vital Atuma, I see you. It's good to have you. Have you shared the video? Please do share, tag your friends, share to groups. Belle Laura, I see you. Guamesia Shella, hi, how are you? Thank you for the hearts. Move for Henrietta. Guamesia Shella, I keep seeing you. Lisette Limnui, I see you. Elvira Jones, I see you. Move for Boris. Yes, all of you. So if you want your name to be projected, you know what to do, right? Please send us stars in the comment section. Get your questions ready, guys, so that he would answer every one of your concerns. So tag everybody taggable underneath this video. Okay, I think it's about that time. Okay, for us to take upon his bio. Ladies and gentlemen, ta-da. So yes, Mr. Eric Chinje is the CEO of the Nairobi-based African Media Initiative, AMI, or AMI, let me put it like that, as it's abbreviated. Prior to moving to Kenya in July 2014, he was and still a visiting scholar at the John Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. He served as an advisor to the government of the DRC, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo, Liberia, and South Sudan, on their strategic development and international communications, an extension of his role as a senior advisor at the Washington-based international communications and trade relations firm KRL International. He came to KRL after a stint as Director of Strategic Communications at the London-based Mo Ibrahim Foundation. Prior to that, he led the Global Media Development Program at the World Bank Institute. And in that capacity, launched the Image, Independent Media for Accountability, Governance, and Empowerment, e-learning program and network to build media capacity to report on and analyze the global development issues. He later moved to the World Bank Initiative from his position as External Affairs and Communications Manager in the World Bank's Africa region and institution spokesman on Africa. He initiated and ran a series of workshops on economics and business reporting, investigative journalism, budget coverage, and reporting on agriculture, involving over 2,000 journalists in Africa and Asia. He spent 4 years at the African Development Bank in Tunis and head of that institution's External Affairs and Communications unit. He is the first head of news / programs and editor-in-chief of Cameroon TV from 1984 to 1991. He served as vice chairman of the World Bank, IMF, Africa Club from 1996 to 2002, and organized the bank's first African Business Forum in 1998. The largest gathering of African businessmen and women ever held in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot I want to talk about him, but of course, we want to have the honor of him being the one to talk about himself by himself. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, with a standing ovation, join me, welcome on board the formidable Eric Chinje. Hello. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Deli. Can you hear me?
I can hear you 5 on 5. It's such an honor to have you actually for the second time.
When you said so much of this little me, I don't know how to react to it.
You're so jam-packed. I literally had to summarize, and you know that. So I'm so happy you.
Anyway, it's good to be here. I can tell you that.
I'm happy you took out time from your busy schedule to honor our invitation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Deli. Can the sound be increased? I'm not sure what to do. I've maximized it here, but I don't hear you as loud as I did before we started.
Oh, really? I'm not sure what's happening. I will just try and see how to work on that. Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear him properly? And can you hear me as well? Let us know in the comments. But I know, let's manage for now, and I'm going to see what to do about that. The comment section is interesting. Somebody says you are aging like fine wine, and I was about telling you that.
Did you ask a question?
So you age like fine wine. What's your secret?
I think I heard some of what you said about fine wine. Is that
you're aging like fine wine? What's your secret?
Oh my God! I wish. But it's, the problem actually is with your eyes, including your glasses, because you're not seeing all the white, all the evidence all the evidence of an elder citizen.
You're looking as elegant as ever, strong and vibrant. Your voice is still there, everything intact.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Let's get on with this discussion. Otherwise, I'll talk,
So how is Cameroon treating you today?
Fine. I've been out of the country since the start of COVID. I left Cameroon in January of 2020, I think, 2020. And I've not been back. So I got back on the 7th of of September, which is the day before my birthday, which was on the 8th. And
Okay.
on the 8th, yes, on the 8th, I was held up in a major conference on energy in Central Africa. We had the ministers of energy, business people involved in the energy sector. It's a major conference on a big discussion about how Central Africa can become a part player in this sector. And it's a major area of our development that we have to do something about it. And I was very happy to be called to help in moderating that conference, which would make some major decisions on how Central Africa moves forward. We cannot have a region as rich as this sub-region. Is the richest, actually, if you come to think of it. And when you include the DRC and you include Uganda, Cameroon, Angola, and so on, it's the richest of the sub-regions. And yet, if you look at all the human development indicators, we are we're the last in the sub-region, in Africa, on the continent. So something needs to be done. And everything... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something obviously needs to be done. We're going to get into all of that, but let's start with the first thing. I mean, for the sake of those who, especially the younger generation, who really don't know much about you, we would like to hear from you, apart from all of what I've read. Who is Eric Chinje, in your own words?
I am defined by three things. One is the ability to listen. I like to listen to people. I like to think I'm a humble human being. And I like to think of myself as someone who understands from a very spiritual sense the fact that he was born in a place, and that place is called Cameroon, and that I have a duty to help move this place where I was born, move it forward. So I spend my time thinking about Cameroon Cameroon as a nation, but Africa as part of that, Africa as the larger context. I spend a lot of time thinking about that. I spend a lot of time, my humility, let me define it. It is in relation to my creator, in relation to God. I'm not a religious person, but I recognize the existence of God. I recognize my place vis-a-vis that greater power. And I see the need for me to protect everything that belongs to that greater power. Every human being, every animal, every plant. So I try to approach things from that perspective. What can I do to improve on that human being, on that plant, on that animal? So it's that's my definition of humility, and I think I am. I try to be every day of my life. And then, of course, you listen. I listen. I love to listen to people because they give you a sense of where everybody's coming from. And it's such a complex, web of interrelated facts that will ultimately help us understand the complexity of our world and where, this world that is turning, where it is going. So 3 words: humility, listening, and building, helping to structure, the world as God would want it, I guess.
Wow,
does that say anything, Deli? Did I say anything?
You said almost everything.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear this from you. I mean, we're learning. And I think those in the comments as well, please let us know in the comments if you can hear him properly. I don't know if your camera can just be a bit stable.
I know, let me hold it as best I can. I'm trying not to have okay. I'll try to hold it there. Is that good enough?
Well, it is, but if you have to hold it, then that might mean it's going to be a bit shaky. I don't know if it can be, placed somewhere or so. But if it's fine, you can manage to hold that.
I'm a master engineer, tech specialist here, but I don't think he can. I don't know. I'm trying to see what we can use to hold it in place. But look, I'll do the best. Okay, let me Let me try something. Let me try this. Is that good enough?
It's good. It's good. If you're fine, then we're fine. It's
I'll
fine
hold
now.
it here. Yes. I'll put it on a support, so it should hold steady for the entire agreement.
Okay, cool. Right. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to hear the three things that you choose to you pride yourself in, and one of which we've been the love for protection of God's own development, of course. And talking about development, you have served as an advisor to the government of a lot of countries in Africa, DRC, Liberia, South Sudan, and on their strategic development. And yet, very little is heard about you in terms of that as far as Cameroon is concerned. Why is that, sir?
You know, it's we are in a country in crisis. Cameroon is a country in crisis.
Your sound has just gone off. I'm not sure. Can you hear him, please?
Someone was trying to call me.
Oh, right. It's fine now. Perfect.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know how to switch off my phone. I can't. When there are a lot of calls coming in. No, it's fine.
Oh, I see.
So we'll deal with this as best we can. Now, I was saying that we have a country in crisis. It's multiple crises. The most important of our crises is governance. We have an economic crisis. Someone called again, and I'm sure it must have interrupted.
Okay, there's an icon, no disturb. I think it's if you swipe on your phone, you would see the no disturb icon. I think that would help. The no disturb helps you prevent calls from coming in.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how to do that.
Yeah.
How do I get the no disturb icon? Yes.
Activated. Yeah.
Activate that. Well, this may take some time, so let's go on, and I'll try the best I can to make sure if they come in, I'll just decline and call.
Right. Let's go back to you not being a lot about you not being heard as per development initiatives as far as Cameroon is concerned.
Yes, I have stayed very close to this country. I've stayed very close to this country. And in all my external work, I've always tried to engage with Cameroon as much as I can. When I was at the World Bank for close to 2 decades, I was consistently engaging with members of the government, with folks who were coming to negotiate contracts and loans, and you name it. When I was at the African Development Bank, I did the same thing. When I was working on governance issues at the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, I was constantly in contact with the prime ministers at the time and their teams. So quietly, I've tried to be relevant and to bring as much of my experience to bear in this country quietly, because I didn't have any I could not do it in any official capacity. But as I said, we're dealing with multiple crises in Cameroon.
Right.
And it will take a greater consciousness and the political will to move us forward. We cannot advance much with the current state of affairs. There's heightened corruption at all levels. Something needs to be done about that if we're going to fix this country. There is a lack of engagement of various groups, civil society, for example, the academic community, for example, the faith groups, with regard to how we work on the minds of people. None of that is happening. The business community feels abandoned. The wealthiest, and why? Because the wealthiest people in the country civil servants. That tells you already what is seriously wrong with what we are doing. The business community, most people now tend to invest outside the country than within it. Tells you there's a problem. So, in a context where truth, what defines truth, has been turned on its head, it's very hard, really, to find an audience with leadership that can significantly move the country forward. So yes, I totally see the point you're making about me not contributing, but it's think about all of you who are out of this country. Think about the contributions you all could make if you had a willing ear to listen. Think about it. You know, I had colleagues in the World Bank. They'll do everything to make a real contribution to this country if they thought anybody was listening. And you travel across the world, everywhere you find top-notch Cameroonians in very important places. You think they don't want to contribute to Cameroon? Everybody wants to. You know, look at the Senegalese. Look at the Ugandans. Look at Kenyans. All of these people, the Ghanaians, not to talk of the Ghanaians, they're all not only investing in their countries, but they're all constantly engaging with their governments. The diaspora of these countries are an active part of government's calculations in its development policy. The diaspora. And come to think of it, there's no country in the world that developed without its diaspora. No country, none. The United States did not develop without its diaspora. If we take those who came in like Einstein, like the Oppenheimers, all of these folks who came into the United States, they came from outside. They didn't come from America. So every country needs its diaspora. But that diaspora has to have a willing ear on the other side. There has to be a willing ear within the structures of government. And that is what we don't have in Cameroon. So Ghana has transformed in under 10 years. Rwanda has transformed in under 10 years. Kenya is on its way to becoming a developed country since President Kibaki. You mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned Botswana, but this is a country that came from nowhere. But look at where it's going. And they work in tandem with their folks in the diaspora. People don't run away. People come home. They bring ideas home. They bring their money and resources home. They invite their friends to come to their countries, and they make a difference. And we could in Cameroon, but we're not. We are not. We have a stubborn government that wants to hold it together, and that pie is not growing. And yet the only way we can make a difference in this country is by growing that pie. Because you want to put out everybody else, and you think you're making sense. You're not. To grow that pie and engage with the entire country and make sure there's youth employment, make sure the folks go to university find value in their training. You've got to expand the field. And that's what we're doing in Cameroon. We're talking about it. I told you I'm in this country to engage with some thinkers, people who want to think about where this country is going. And I'm totally excited about that.
I mean, we're excited. We're all excited, and we're looking forward to what's going to come up from that. Fingers crossed. And yeah, yes, I mean, for those of you in the comment section, and those of you who will be listening to this maybe later on, would love for you to take us down memory lane. Your days at CTV, the then CTV, which is now CRTV. How it was vis-a-vis now, how things are, and also to be able to tell us objectively if it is possible for someone to truly uphold the tenets of objective of journalism while working in these state institutions like CRTV or BBC. Yeah. Let's start with your days at CTV.
Okay, I mean, that goes back into history, you know. Now you're talking about time and the passage of time. That goes back into history, you know. It's how long ago? It's at least, because the first broadcast of Cameroon television was on the 20th of March, 1985.
Oh,
But we tested the television signals as, you know, a year earlier, so in 1984, when we had an agro-pastoral show in Bamenda. That's the first time that system to work, and it succeeded, which then helped us launch it officially on the 20th of March, when the party that's in power right now in Cameroon, the CPDM, was founded. So that was the occasion for launching Cameroon television. There's a lot to be said about that launch. The story that I like to tell is where we were born. CRTV was born in a half-finished building. We needed a place to put up our cameras and a place not far from the Congress Center where the CM was going to be launched. And the only thing we could find was this half-abandoned, half-finished structure where you literally had to go over blocks and wires and God knows what else to set up what stood for a studio. We did. And we began the broadcasting. We had a lot happen at that time. We were too successful, it seems to me, for our own good, because as soon as we were broadcasting in English and French, of course, as soon as that, what was a trial run, was done over the 4 days of that Congress, which is what we did. We went from the 20th to the 25th of March. Nobody thought we could handle that, but we did. And because it was so, quote unquote, successful, brought forward for ultimately launching Cameroon television, and we did that year in December. Now, the French government, and I don't know if I should say this, but I would. The French government then became very interested in Cameroon television. We had fairly good technical people. We had fairly good journalists, the technical team. The test had been successful. And what the French did was to suggest to us who worked on television they suggested we should come to France to train. And our response was, if we come to France to train, then nobody will be running this thing. And nothing will happen. So the French did what the French do best. They went to the president, top level of the country, and said, look, those guys are good, but they need to be trained. Even though they had seen that we were as good as we were. And their intent, and then they told the government, we will provide programs from French TV, we'll provide those programs. And we try and get some from the BBC, so you can put a few in English. And then you will send your guys over to us to train. The whole point of that was to ensure that we never had mastery and control over our television. And I'm grateful that we resisted that. We resisted it, and that's what made, ultimately, Cameroon television, especially in its beginnings, such a powerful cultural force in the country. Things have changed ever since. But that's where we began. We brought together a mishmash almost of talent, people who are trained in Russia, people who are trained in America. I was trained in the United States, people who are trained in France, in the UK, in Nigeria, from all over. And out of that mishmash, we created this, what became the television unit in Cameroon. And somehow allowed our individual talents to merge and produce something that was uniquely Cameroonian in French and English. So that's part of that story. You know, you can, if you're interested in the details, there are lots of it, but there.
So I did, well, we see a lot of comments on there. I'm going to take on the comments later on. So that was the A part of the question I asked, your days on there, and also asking if anyone can truly uphold the tenets of objective journalism while working for a state-controlled media house as CRTV. Now,
I'll just in response to that. Again, my answer would be yes and no.
Okay.
It takes for a level of some level of experience to navigate the contours of censorship in any institution. We had quite a lot of that. I will give an example, which even goes back prior to television, and which is when President Ahidjo was still in power and we were in radio. The only thing we had was radio. And the censorship was quite strict. But what we would do, because the president then made some of the best speeches ever. So we would take his speeches and under the cover of his speeches, critique what was actually happening on the ground. The difference between his speeches and action on the ground were quite vast. So all you had to do when you wanted to criticize the fact that roads were not built was take a line from the president's speech where he talks about the need to build roads, and then find out that, well, we'll figure out what plans he has, but those plans have not been exercised in any of these places. So, there's a way you can go around censorship by state authorities. Truth be told, though, media in every country is a reflection of the state of mind of the leadership. If you have a leadership with small mind, yes. If you're led by a group of small-minded people, your media will tend to reflect that. And unfortunately, I have no problem saying that CRTV today is a reflection of a certain quality of leadership, which could be better. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay, right. It could be better. Talking about drawing inspiration from the days at CTV as first head of news and programs and editor-in-chief, what changes would you implement if you were offered the position of DJ, so Director General of CRTV today?
Well, the first thing is I don't think I'll accept it. That's one. But if I advise my friend Sean, who's there now, I think I've tried on a couple of occasions to make this point. Government, the role of government is to help us build on this pie that I talked about, expand the possibilities for every Cameroonian. That is the central role of government, to improve on the quality of life of every citizen. That is the central role of government. If I were to lead Cameroon television today, my vision will be focused on that. When I was here in television, the things we did, I came up with a lot of ideas that were implemented. I'll tell you, each time I left my house, going to TV house, I would notice things that would ultimately find their way into our television discourse. Lights, street lights that were not working, or people not stopping at streetlights, I would send cameras to go and film. This happened. I'd send cameras to go and film those people breaking those streetlights. And then we'll put them on TV. And what did we see when we did that? Government vehicles, military vehicles, police vehicles, everybody. And the day we did that, I remember we did a program called Sometime Weekend, we were getting angry calls from everybody. But the point had been made. Taxi drivers beat the lights, policemen beat the lights, and government officials in a huge, what do they call, Pajeros? Those cars that, when they think they've arrived, they buy Pajeros and those kinds of things. They were all beating lights. And that was made. Every time they change ministers, they throw out nice seats, like the one I'm sitting on. I don't know if you can see it. Don't throw them out. All of that is to get a budget. So we sent a crew to go and look at recuperating. How do we recuperate these things that were being thrown out? And the day that program was put on the air, and we did a series on that, that began to affect the minds of people. So we tried to use television to put a mirror in front of the Cameroonian society. It was like a mirror. And the mistakes we were making became evident as we looked at that mirror.
Right.
Television, when I look at CRTV today, it does not tell me what the issues are in this country. It does not tell me what the issues are. It does not tell me about the poor quality of education. I just saw a good thing this morning on a good school in the Yaoundé area. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. So he's obviously doing something right. But where are the stories on the catastrophic urban policy in Yaoundé? Douala and Yaoundé, the two cities we have to be proud of. I was in Douala last week. The deputy mayor of Houston, who had been invited to this program I was attending, with ministers from across Central Africa and other countries. And literally out of shame, I had to confess that, we have a problem with in my presentation to them. So we have a problem with the quality of roads and in the city of Douala. So please don't spend too much time looking at that. So where are we with programs on urbanization? Where are we with programs on agriculture and transformation of our agricultural products? Where are we with, there was a time they said, because of the war in Ukraine, the cost of living has increased. We don't have access to cereals. Bread, the cost of bread has increased in Cameroon. Where are we? Why don't we have a program on that? Why can't we demonstrate that Cameroon can feed Africa with cereal? Why is that not being done? We can produce as much wheat to feed this continent, especially in the northern part of this country. Why is that not being told? So, television is there for entertainment, is there to educate, to change, to bring new ideas to the community. Now, in the change of the mindset, we're moving into a technologically enhanced quality of life. What are we doing about the only thing I see is Facebook. It's not Facebook that's going to develop, that we need to get out of new technologies. There's a whole lot more. It's supposed to affect how we manage ourselves, how we structure the delivery of services. Why? We're not doing any of that, and I'm not seeing any of that on television. So yes, I have a lot to, if I had to speak to my friend and brother, Charles, I'll have a lot to tell him. And he could radically change this TV. He could. And there are private television stations in Cameroon that are doing it. So why not CRTV?
Interesting conversation here, guys. In the comment section, I have some questions for you, just in line with what you have said. That's on the screen. I don't know if you can see your screen. It's
Mm-hmm.
from Menjo T. Thomas. Maybe before, well, just after you take that question, I did not plan on asking you this question. It just came up from the explanation you gave.
Yeah.
I don't know which
Well,
one you want to go first.
yeah,
Wait.
and I'm seeing the question on what was so particular about CTV in the late 1980s,
Right.
and was there strict government censorship? Look, what was particular about TV in the 1980s? There are two things. One, we're the only television in the country, so everybody watched. Forced to watch, those who could afford their TV set. So that gave us an audience we could engage with that most TV stations now don't have. So and then the second thing, and is that the authorities did not know how to engage with TV. So we, the professionals, had a lot of room, to act as professionals. I remember once the Minister of Information at the time, Professor George Ngango, came into our studio and he saw, we were editing, the president had just done something and we're editing that, bringing it down to he'd done something that lasted a couple of hours. We had to bring it down to 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So he was there watching and he saw these images of the president running and back and forth. And he said, but stop manipulating the president. That's the way this work is done, So yes, we've had, we had moments like that because they did not know how TV worked. We could literally get away with quote unquote murder, and we did. So and to censorship also applies because we could get away with a lot of things. I remember the first interview of the opposition figure in 1991. 1990. And that interview was with John, and he wanted to pass as an alternative to the current president. So he came to my house and said, I have to be on that TV. And I remember having asked the question to the President of the Republic, myself. And he had told me, tell them, if they ask you the question, that we would prepare the legislation to guide the use of television by the opposition parties. So here I was stuck between Mr. Biya, the president, and Frundi, whom I happen to know very well, very, very well, you'd be surprised how well, telling me I can't be on TV. So I told him, I said, okay, would it be okay if we mention your event and your name? Yes, but you can't call Mr. Biya His Excellency. So that evening, I talked about the president, talked about His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya, and I talked about Mr. Frundi. I talked about and His Excellency Mr. Frundi. That's all it took to satisfy him. Look, Frundi had his name mentioned on TV as His Excellency Mr. Frundi. Nobody knew the story behind this. But that already allowed him to get a sense of the fact that he could. I didn't tell the nation that I had to take away a problem that was so stupid and so useless by a simple statement like that. Frundi knows this. And for months, he let us do our work because he said, well, they've recognized the fact that I'm His Excellency. Again, playing on the minds of people. Those are the early 80s. I mean, people, they come very slowly to what television could do, and we got away with some of those things. I don't know if that answers the question on censorship and what made TV special, but that's there are a lot of these stories, of course, and I'd love to engage with your audience on that if there's real interest, you know. I can't hear you, Delhi. Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I was muted. I'm happy that we're getting to hear this story from you firsthand and on Delhi TV, man. People are getting to hear
Yes,
this from
ma'am.
here. So it's such an honor. Right. The question I picked from the answer you were given is the issue of mindset and how we can develop our own by ourselves. How other countries are doing it, and we can possibly do it. There are lots of people with the school of thought that um, Africa cannot be developed because there's an issue with the West. More like the problem of Africa is the West. What would you say about this?
Look, I think it's a way out for a lot of people. Africa should. This is what my friends and I here in we're trying to think of Cameroon away from all of those distractions, away from the distractions of history, from colonization, from English and French, from cultures that and traditions that are not necessarily ours. We've not been able to give ourselves the freedom of thought, and that's what we're trying to address now. People who want to continue thinking that, oh, we are not evolving because of France, they've got some thinking to do. Or we're not evolving because we are Anglophones and therefore Ambazonians, because we are English. I think they've got some thinking to do. We want to go back. We want to go beyond these cultures,
Right.
these imported cultures, and think about this geographical space that is called Cameroon. And it is in our common interest to look at that space in its totality, to look at the resources it has, and to ask ourselves, how do we exploit those resources in a manner that can make this country great? And we can. That's the irony, we can. We can transform our cassava. There are 35 derivatives of cassava. We can transform that and feed Nigeria and the rest of Africa. I drink, you're talking about coffee. I drink Cameroon coffee more than any other because I am a coffee drinker. And the quality of our coffee is comparable only, in my view, to coffee from Ethiopia. And to some extent, the coffee from a certain part of Rwanda and Kenya, from the hills, from the mountains. Because you can tell coffee that comes from the valley and coffee that comes from the mountains, if it is well roasted. And we have one of the best in Cameroon. What are we doing about promoting it? Think about the Cameroonian cuisine. Think about the Cameroonian cuisine. Think about, and all of your audience, people listening to me now, where in the world have you found such an incredible variety of what is good, tasty, fulfilling, nutritional? COVID came and flew over us because we're eating what we're eating in this country. Why can't we promote that? Why can't we promote that? The embassies, I go to parties given by our embassies. And I hope your embassy, there are people from the embassy in London listening to you and from other parts. They serve food, but they do not promote the cuisine. How ignorant are we? How ignorant are we? My first discovery of China was through Chinese cuisine. Even Vietnam. Even Senegal. Don't want to go out of the continent. Even Senegal. I started eating yassa and said, they cook well. Then I wanted to go to Senegal and eat yassa and cheboje. Two dishes. That's what Senegal has. They promote it. For a long time, the only restaurants in Washington Only African restaurants in Washington, Ethiopian, Senegalese. And what do the Ethiopians have? That's what they have. They build everything around their injera. And yet they have, in Washington alone, over 40 restaurants. If any of your audience is in Washington, they can find out. Over 40 in the city, not in Greater Washington, in the city of Washington. You know, I entered a restaurant in Douala the other day. In Douala. I've forgotten the name of that restaurant. But for the first time, I felt I was in a Cameroonian restaurant. I came in, I saw the colors of Cameroon. I could smell the scents of Cameroon. In Douala. I must get the name of that restaurant because I love to talk about it because it's the first time I saw that. So why don't we have a multiplicity of those kinds of restaurants? When you enter a Chinese restaurant, don't you know you're in a Chinese restaurant? You do instantly. So why can't we do that for Cameroon? Look, these are just small ideas, but small ideas that achieve big things that can radically transform a country and its economy. And that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm really happy you made mention of all of that, especially for the youths, so they begin to maybe change our thought pattern, because it's a lot about the mindset to know that our solutions are entwined. They are very much within reach. I mean, It is not about the West, because we've had this conversation back and forth on social media, just trying to get the different views of especially the youth. And so many of us are stuck with the mindset of it is the West, it is the West, it is the West. I'm happy that, coming from you, it makes all the difference. I'm really so happy. There's another question here from for Evelyn. We're almost an hour into this conversation and it's getting even more interesting. I would love for us to get into politics, talk about the Anglophone crisis as well. Of course, I'm not putting Anglophone crisis on politics because there's a lot about the Anglophone crisis that is off politics. But before we get into that, and I'll take some of the questions in the comment section. Having served as vice chairman for as long as you've served, what is your honest take about the World Bank as a partner of development in Africa? In other words, are World Bank policies honestly designed for the benefit of Africa?
I don't like to criticize an institution that did so much for me.
Can you take that back, please? You were
I'll tell you the truth.
Can you take it again, please?
I said hard for me to criticize an institution that did so much for me as an individual.
Oh, right.
But as a Cameroonian and as an African, I have to say it as it is. The World Bank will never develop Africa. As a matter of fact, most of the lending that the World Bank and the IMF and all those institutions, including the African Development Bank, most of the lending they do to our countries provides an excuse for our leaders not to invest in those sectors and allows them to steal state funds and encourage corruption. If I got close to leadership in this Cameroon today, one of the first things we will do is to stop lending or borrowing, from the World Bank and the IMF and the others. You know why? Because we have to teach our people to be self-reliant. I'll give you an example. In this country, there was a time Ethiopia needed one thing over everything else. Ethiopia. They were beginning, this was when Ethiopia was coming out of what the world had come to recognize as extreme poverty. Ethiopia was said to be the poorest countries on earth. And you would remember there was this Live Aid, all kinds of things were being done to raise money to feed Ethiopians.
Right.
And then an Ethiopian, a quality of leadership emerged in Ethiopia, led by Zenawi. And how do you explain this? a period of maybe 2 or 3 years, Ethiopia was almost self-sufficient in food production. What explained this? I can tell you from the vantage point I had at the time that it was the policies. And looking ahead, that leadership determined that energy was going to hold them down. They needed to develop sources of energy, electricity. And they had a different source of hydraulic energy, the River Nile. So Prime Minister Zenawi and his people decided to build a dam to dam part of the Nile and to provide hydro electricity to the country and its new emerging industries. A number of people stood against it. One, the Egyptians. Egypt let it be known to the world that it will go to war if Ethiopia dammed the Nile. So instantly, the Americans supported the Egyptians. As soon as the Americans did, the World Bank and the IMF and the European Union and everybody supported the Ethiopians. And Meles Zenawi tried to raise money from these same international institutions. Not one would give him a dime. Everybody rejected Ethiopia's efforts to build that dam. You know what he did? He had only one source he could turn to. One. The Ethiopian people. The government turned to the same Ethiopian people the world comes to see as the poorest ever. Extreme poverty. He turned to them and said, give your 1 birr. That's the currency in Ethiopia. If that's all you have, but let us build the dam. And they built the Gibe Dam. They built the Gibe Dam in Ethiopia. That money was no, didn't come anywhere else. Now, there is the Congo River. We do not have the problem of the Nile. The Congo River could light up Africa and export energy. But with the quality of leaders we have in the Central African region, can come to build that, to dam the river. We've had 3 major studies called the Grand Inga 1 and Grand Inga 2. Studies carried out to demonstrate the power of the Congo River to generate energy. We had them. The studies are there. And then we turn to donors, and not a single donor has been able to come up with the money. When these studies were carried out, it was about 8 billion francs. $8 billion would have done the work. $8 billion, Cameroon can come up with $8 billion if we organize ourselves. No. The money had to come from the World Bank. And the World Bank said, no, you're not going to, you're not going to get $8 billion from us to bury in the Congo, in Congo. They refused to give that money. And the African leaders have never, and they know it. They all know it. This is what is so disheartening. All these leaders know it. If we build Inga 1, Inga 2, and Inga 3, and the Grand Inga, there will be no problem of, and this is from a natural resource. So this is a renewable energy. If we do it, half of Africa's energy problems could be resolved, and we will export energy. But that's precisely why the West, you can't make Africa energy sufficient. Then they start building industries. Then they start becoming wealthy. And then they are no longer dependent. Look at everything the World Bank and the IMF and the EC and all of them do. Look at every action intended to increase dependency. Look, I hate to say this, because I don't criticize an institution I worked for, because I got a lot of ideas thanks to my time in the World Bank.
Right.
But when it comes to my thinking, I'm an African first. I'm not. And that's what I say. Young Africans should know it. These institutions can come in and support us. We can gather resources from them, but we should not depend on them for development ideas. We should not think that any action they take will guarantee development on this continent. It will never happen. In Douala last week, we were talking about developing infrastructure for energy distribution in Central Africa. And everybody said, oh, where are we going to get the money? And I heard a few voices say, oh, man, I said, no. You can, develop this project. Once you develop this project well, carry out your studies, everybody should be running to finance it. But the problem is, you Africans cannot agree amongst yourselves. So I told the ministers who were there, each of you should go back to your governments and make this project a priority project and refuse any other form of assistance until this project is financed. That was my message to the ministers present. Go back to your governments, make this a priority project. And the financing agencies of the world refuse. Let them understand that you return to your people, like Ethiopia did, like Morocco has done, and others. They'll be afraid and they'll run to you. They know that Africa, they can tap a lot out of this continent, but they are afraid to make it less dependent because they made Vietnam less dependent, and Vietnam grew out of dependency. They made China less dependent, and China became the number one economic power in the world. And they're determined Africa will never be able. It's for the Africans to understand that. I was at the bank in 1995 when China asked for $5 billion. I was sitting at the board. I'm telling you about my own experience. I don't know about the others. My own experience. I was sitting at the board meeting of the World in 1995 or 1996 when the $5 billion request from China was discussed. And the bank managers, led by the US and others, said, no, we'll give them $500 million. They cannot manage $5 billion. They cannot manage $5 billion. That was the answer from the World Bank. And to its credit, the Chinese said, we are not taking your money until you give us the $5 billion we want for that specific project in some part of China, which in the Tibet. They were trying to build something around the Tibet region in China. If you don't give us the $5 billion, forget, keep your money. And we don't want a World Bank office in Beijing. That is how change. That's how the World Bank became, all of a sudden became a giant supporter of activities in China. So, we have to know what we want and stand our ground and demand what we need. That's the way it is. That's what the other parts of the world have done and developed.
Wow. Yes, interesting conversation on here. We've been here for just a bit over 1 hour, and the conversation is getting even more interesting.
And I have to leave at some point because I've got another engagement coming up. Mm-hmm.
Right. Just about time for us to get into the Anglophone crisis. We have Barrister Agbobala there in the comment section saying hello to you. We have sorry, there was a glitch there. We couldn't get you. Right, we have
I don't know, just a question from Evelyn since it was the only with few professionals, how was it possible to report about the entire country?
Right. I think we've somehow tackled that question already. I don't know if you want to get into that again.
We sent crews around the country. We sent crews around the country to film because one of the things we did back in '85 was to introduce Cameroon to Cameroonians.
Right. Ooh.
There were people who didn't know that being an Anglophone meant you were some kind of a creature that was difficult to understand. Or being a Francophone to the Anglophones was put you in a certain category of humanity. People didn't understand that. So we had to show them. We had to show them that they're the same people living with the same traditions and so on. So we were sending crews across the country, filming, talking to people, bringing out certain realities, and most especially pointing out to Cameroonians how similar we were. How similar we were culturally, traditionally, socially, and so on. So yeah.
Right. Okay, there's a question there from Barrister Abobala. It's just about time for us to take on the Anglophone crisis. Anglophone crisis have plagued Cameroon for the last 6 years with a plethora of definitions of what it is. In your opinion, what is the Anglophone crisis, and what would you reckon is the way forward?
My younger brother Felix Metro Bala is there. Agbobala.
Maybe you take up on his question later on, because he's just asked the question.
Yes, but I'm delighted to know that. I'm delighted to know that he's listening. He's someone who belongs to the history of our evolving nation, and it's a pleasure to have him, to engage with him through this forum.
Right.
Let me say this: 2 things. One is the conflict in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon is very much a part of the crisis, the multiple crises I was talking about. So there is a real, I don't like to call it an Anglophone crisis. It's a crisis of nation. A cultural crisis is one dimension of it. Political crisis is another dimension of it. And until we can take control of the various levers of that crisis, I do not think we're going to solve the so-called, I don't know why they keep calling it that, Anglophone problem.
Anglophone crisis, you're right.
Yes. So, my take is there is a real reason Anglophones in Cameroon, and I hate to use the term Anglophones, but be that as it may, the country was split in 2 parts, the English-speaking and the French-speaking. So the English were the Anglophones. And it is true that they had genuine frustrations, which led to the crisis. And the crisis came about because you had political leaders who could not address a political problem with a political solution.
Right.
That's it. This problem could have been resolved long ago. Should have been resolved from 1961. Never resolved. So yet the frustrations continued. And that's what ultimately exploded. And we not wind back this clock and go to the beginnings of the crisis, I don't think would ever resolve the problem. So yes, there is an Anglophone crisis. There's a conflict in that region, but it's the political aspects of it have to be resolved politically. It will never be resolved militarily. It has to be resolved politically. Dimensions of it. We've got to invoke the gods of culture, of the Cameroonian culture, not the French or the English, to address this problem. And and then of course there are the economic and social aspects of it. If you know the level of frustrations in the northern parts of Cameroon, they almost equate the level of frustration in English-speaking parts of Cameroon, in the eastern parts of Cameroon. So yes, we've got to deepen our thinking on these issues. I told you when I started in Yaoundé because I want to meet with some friends who are willing to engage in that process and to think differently about this country. This is not a French country, it's not an English country, therefore it's not an Anglophone country, it's not a Francophone country, it's a Cameroon country. And until we get that, wrap our minds around that, and build a Cameroon, we continue to navigate blindly in the sea of confusion that is called Cameroon today.
Okay.
Delhi.
Ooh. Man, I was lost in thoughts there. I mean,
Well, you
yeah,
know,
the question on the screen, I would love for us
yeah.
to take it because it's in line with what you've just said. So he's
Okay, when are
asking,
you coming? Yeah, when are you coming back to join us in the struggle to make the country a better place for each and everyone? Look, you know, I don't like these pretentious stupidities. You know, every one of us, wherever you are in the world, if you love your country, you make a contribution. So I don't like somebody trying to be better, a better person than he or she truly is. If we set our minds to it, I'm in the United States. I happen to be in Cameroon today. I'm in Cameroon because I want to meet with people to talk about our country. I want to talk about the frustrations of the Anglophones and which led to the conflict in that part of the country and how we resolve it. So whoever asked the question, I mean, it's good enough, you know, vent your frustrations, but let's come up with answers. That's what this is about. Let's come up with
right?
responses. So thank you, whoever asked the question.
No, it's
Please
actually
know
Barrister
that.
Abobala who is asking in terms of what you said, more like a follow up of what you said, like in all of that. When are we expecting you to come on post? Given your
No. I mean, I will continue from wherever I stand or sit to contribute to resolving crises, to finding solutions to the many problems, to critiquing things that need to be criticized,
right,
and help find the answers that impose, you know, that impose themselves on all of us. I don't think any single person has an answer. And I know, I mean, I know what I don't. The question I answered actually when I said people should stop being uh, better than. Oh, are you still?
hello, sir. Can you hear me? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Well, c'est presque fini en tout cas.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I pressed map. Can you hear me?
Yes, we lost you there for a bit, but it's fine now. I think we can get you. So I was saying
Okay,
that I don't know.
mhm.
Right, right.
I'm just reading what is saying. You know, Agbo saying we need you here. We need him. I mean, he amazed an audience in the United States. But how did someone like Agbobala be here in this country? How are we tapping into his huge talent? What are we doing to tap into that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're having a bit of a glitch at your end, but it's fine. Just go on. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
We can always fill in the
And,
blank spaces when we miss out on anything you say. So it's fine. We're getting more of what you're saying, most of what you're saying. So
okay.
it's fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, the point I was making is, look, if we listen to ourselves, and if we provoke thought, we get people to think and speak dispassionately. Because one of the things that has held us back is the emotionalisms of our people, our inability to use the head where we should use the head, and we're using the heart where the head should be used. You know,
Right.
we so the ability to detach yourself from a reality so you can see the big picture and explain it and help people understand it. Barrister Bala does that all the time, and I happen to know it. So I don't know whether he's still there, but he's here in the country. He's one of the best ambassadors we have, and he should be encouraged to speak. You know, instead of having me, you know, I'm out of the country and all of that stuff. Get him on this show and let him talk to you guys, you and your audience. But the point I'm making is, look, okay, somebody's still saying they need me back home, and I agree, but I'm not away from home. I'm not away from home. Being in the United States does not take me away from Cameroon. I live Cameroon in the United States. For 40 years, I've held back from taking another nationality just because, even though it's so difficult staying with my Cameroonian nationality and a passport that used to be respected and is no longer respected. It's complicated living with the Cameroon passport now, but that has not forced me to change my nationality. And I'm hoping that someday they'll accept dual nationality so that I can take the American passport, which I've had a right to for over 40 years. But it's because this Cameroonian in me that can go out. So wherever I am, Cameroon is with me. To think that I can only be Cameroonian when I'm in Cameroon, it's not relevant. I'll hold back from using the word I want to use.
Okay, just almost about to round up on this. Let's talk about politics like that. So what's your appraisal of the political landscape of Cameroon?
So right now, I think when we're moving this country to the edge of a precipice. And if we don't hold it back, if we don't inject the kinds of thoughts, the kind of thinking that should be taking place now, Cameroon might fall over the precipice. And we're finding ourselves like Somalia, that has not come out of the precipice it fell into 40, almost 50 years ago, after Siad Barre. Siad Barre was warning his country. The warlords will destroy this country, and nobody heard him. Nobody heard him. They thought he was just saying it to. But look at Somalia. And I tell every Cameroonian today, don't quote me in 50 years and said he told us so. Let us pull this country back from the edge of that precipice. Let us inject the kind of thinking that should help us identify the Cameroon we want. His mandate ends in 2025. We hope he will be around until then. But that should be the logical end of his mandate. He'll be 93 at the time. So Mr. Biya has no prospects, I don't think. And nobody should try to tell us that after 93. The Queen of England.
Oh, that was Mr. Eric Chinje there. He is currently the CEO of the African Media Initiative and also an expert in development initiative in and around Africa. He has been on about the Anglophone crisis, talking about his days on CTV, the then CTV, now CRTV. We're looking at the Anglophone crisis and, of course, on political issues. We have some few more questions for him, hopefully that he can come on board again and we can round up this conversation. I see a lot of you in the comment section. A boat tackle Ako was which just explained that we should stop crying after spilled milk as Africans. Exactly. Joe T. Thomas, we need you back home. Yeah, he saw that. Evelyn 4 has been very active. I'm really appreciative of your time spent here. Evelyn, thank you so much for that. Hopefully he can come back. There's a lot of you in the comment section and I really appreciate your time. Let's see if we can get him back on here. I think we were having a bit of a glitch there, but I don't know if, but I mean, we got him for the most part, right? So I'm just going to take on this very short break. When we come back, that is if he is still there. We have 2 more questions and very important questions for him to answer, and then we can call it a day. Please share this video again, tag your friends, form hearts. You know how we do it when we come back.
ICT Country People University. Make we hear, when I get the spots.
The 21st century is a century for ICT. You need a tool such as ICT to reach so many places.
Apply now and study ICT, Science of Education, Business Management, and many more at the ICT University.
I can remember having my first company on paper at ICT University during my Entrepreneurship 101 course.
We have lectures online and on-site, permitting us to connect with other students all over the world.
The ICT University recently received the Guardian Post Award for Best University in the sub-region.
Artificial intelligence is all around us, from self-driving cars and drones to virtual assistants and software that can guide you when moving from one city to another in Cameroon.
Apply now. American-style studies right here.
Now, country people, the ICT University for Yaoundé, so now the best for Central African sub-region, my country people. Now, Professor Emmanuel Pondi that win a big oga for the university. And one salute Professor
Victor Mbarika.
Country people with this wonderful initiative where don't bring them inside Cameroon. When I don't get for go for one man country again for go study business management, study wonderful technology and a lot of other things and way ICT University again are the best ICT university that for inside Cameroon. So send your picking there. When I want to already get advanced level, Papa na better places. Not in America, now for inside Africa and for Cameroon, it day. So now we partner, we're going to talk about them before school and start for October. Thank you. Kick 'em. When I there for catch 'em.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being patient. So we have him back. I'm going to get him back on here for him to continue with the political talk we were having. So he was on the question of his appraisal of the political landscape of Cameroon. We're going to be finding out what his thoughts are about post Biya, and of course, if he had to go in for as future president, what 5 points are we expected to have him in his manifesto? So he's going to come on here and of course talk about all of this. Keep sharing the video, guys. Thank you so much. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for what happened again. It's the technology.
It's expected. Right. Thank you so much for coming back. Yeah, so we're on about your. Okay. Oh, is it just me? Your camera is frozen?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened. It's reloading now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're just it's frozen.
Yeah, if you can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah.
So you've gone off camera. You've gone off camera. You're there, but your image.
Oh, I see what happened. Yes. Yes. No. I now see what happened.
Okay.
And it's coming on.
Okay.
Well, since you can hear me, we can go on, right?
Yeah, we can go on. You want to touch on the icon, the camera icon of your phone? There's this.
I have. I've gone to that camera icon. I've on it. It was closed. I've opened it, and the microphone. I've just opened that.
Okay, let me take you off the screen and see if I can get you again on there. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Looks like, yes, I can hear you 5 on 5. Yeah. So let's talk about post Biya. What you see, what do you think? How do you see life after? Post Biya, and if you were to run for president in future, give us 5 points that will encapsulate your manifesto.
Okay, let me be clear about a number of things. One, I'm too old to I've never been a politician, and I'm too old to start contemplating that. I celebrated my 68th birthday a few days ago. So yes, what will I do as an advisor? And that role I intend to play as an advisor to the next president. So if you ask me from that angle, yeah, I'll tell you quite a few things.
Advisor then.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm happy to play that role. You know, we have a population of about, it'll soon get to about 30 million. Have we thought about how we structure our economy to generate the wealth that can be distributed in ways that will ultimately improve the quality of life of every one of the 30 million people? That we need to step back and think about. How do we do it? And we need to create teams that look at every aspect of life in this country. We must be able to create the wealth, because without it, there's nothing we can do. What do we have to build on? What should we add value to? How? Yeah. And those things we add value to, are they for internal consumption or external consumption? And if it's external consumption, where are the markets? We have, let me give you a few examples. Cameroon produces cotton. We have something here called Sodecoton. Chad produces cotton. Congo Brazzaville, in its northern part, produces cotton. So here's a cotton producing section, part of this continent that does not have a single activity or presence in the textiles industry. What does it cost us to have the best textile schools? Thousands of our young children should study to belong to the textiles industry. What does it cost us to come together, all of these countries that are cotton producers, and become an important player in the cotton market of the world, where you'd be listened to? We don't have a cotton industry in Central Africa. We don't have a petrochemical industry in Central Africa, and yet, if we brought our countries together from Angola to Cameroon to Gabon and Equatorial Guinea, we will be a central player in the oil industry of the world. Now that they're talking about Russia and its ability to determine how the world runs on oil, energy, and gas, we will be an important player in that regard. Why can't we think beyond our little small borders, our little small markets? And in that regard, let me just say that the one reason I will never be an Amazonian is precisely that. It's precisely that. Oh, they're all excited. They're small minds. And I tell them, and I look at them in the eyes. Small minds. So, yeah, oh, that would be enough for us to build super highway. It's not happening in Africa yet. So let us think bigger. Let us work together. Let us create those industries, those schools for those industries. We can have a petrochemical industry. We can have the world's second timber industry after the Amazon. We have the potential. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing that? Why don't we have it here? Why should I'm sitting here, this seat, I think I'm sitting in my sister's house, sir. I think you bought this seat from abroad. With our wood, this wood came from here. Look, it doesn't make sense. We have to think outside of the box. We have to think bigger. We have to figure out how we solve African resolve. I'm sorry, I may have lost some of your audience because I talked about not being an Amazonian, but it is the truth. They have no clue what they're talking about.
Right. Talking about, well, let's just call Amazonians, Anglophones. What would you what do you make of the statement of Barrister Abubala of his recent outings where he said Cameroon needs an Anglophone president? It's about that time. What do you make of that?
Oh, totally. Look, Felix and I think alike. We think alike in so many ways. And I agree with him. I agree with him in the sense that we need to try something different. You cannot do the same thing over and over and expect a different set of results. So I agree with him.
Okay. Right. I mean, I guess that's where we call it a day. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully we get to have you again. Thank you for always having saying yes to our invitation. And maybe there's a final word before we round up on this.
Yes, let me say this. I know most of your audience is abroad. We will not build this country without the diaspora. But we have to have an incubating, we have to have the in this country to accept your ideas, to accept your resources, and put them to good use. So that needs to be done. And I'm hoping that the next government in this country will do. So for everyone in the diaspora, please, let's stop thinking, let's, reducing our thought processes to our stomachs. Oh, and the next minister, and I can only be the minister in an Amazonian republic. No. Let us think big. Let us think about how we create industries here. Let us think about how we create wealth and distribute it. Let us think about how we add value, how we transform the natural things that go. I hope you heard me.
I mean, glitching. I mean, there was a glitch again, but thinking about how to transform, right?
Yes, how to transform the natural products that God gave us. I can start naming them, and I can tell you what the derivatives of those things would be if we. The colonialists forced us into coffee and tea, but they didn't tell us about ginger, what we can get from ginger, or bitter cola, and what we can get from bitter cola, or cassava, or plantain, or banana. And these things have amazing nutritional products. We don't even have our people studying them and telling us what can we get out of them. We need to turn all of this around. So, yeah, we can build Cameroon can be one of the leading lights of Africa, and we can make it happen. And look, I hope that those listening to me will start thinking about how we do that and be more than willing to engage with them anytime needed.
Wow, thank you so much for the closing statement. Cameroon can be one of the beaming lights of Africa, and that starts with you and I and all of us listening. Thank you so much again, Uncle Chinje. It was a pleasure having you, and I see you again. Have a beautiful time in Cameroon. Right.
Thank you very much. All right.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the horse's mouth. I mean, we've had a lot. I'm going to sit down and digest all of this. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for those of you who started at the beginning and you stayed true to the end. Okay, until next time, it's been an exclusive sit down with On Delhi TV. Bye-bye again. I'll see you around. Bye.